This is the HIPA carburetor kit for Briggs Stratton 5.5 to 6.75 horsepower small engines. Let's take it out of the box. In the box you get quite a bit. Top row left to right, 2 gaskets, one for the intake and one for the carburetor where it meets the engine. There are 2 metric conversion charts. You can hang those up. There's a little hole punched in them. On the second row you have a fuel filter, inline fuel filter that you can install, a spark plug, the carburetor itself, and on the bottom is an air filter on the left and like a pre-filter on the right. I'm going to show you how this gets installed onto your typical mower. This is a Yardman lawnmower. I really don't know anything about it. It was given to me. This thing was rode hard and put away wet, as the saying goes. It's in very rough shape. I actually just replaced the carburetor recently on it, and it does run fine, but I'm going to get you down to pretty much all the way there and show you how it gets installed. So I'll show you what I know, and let's get started on it. Incidentally, if you're having a problem with hard starting on your mower, if it stalls out on you, and just won't restart, and you have to keep playing with it and hope that you can restart it, a new carburetor might just fix it up, and they're pretty inexpensive as well. So let me show you how this goes. Now you need to look up and see what carburetor that your particular engine takes. I don't know much more about this engine other than it's a Briggs and it's 6 horsepower. 799868 is the number that I know of for this carburetor. Bear in mind, there are 2 variants of this. There is this one, as you see right here, and there is another one that has a white plastic doohickey sticking up there that can turn in different positions, like 4 or 5 different positions. That's a manual choke. So you want to make sure you buy the right one. This particular one does not have or use such a choke like that. The first thing we need to do on this engine, this is kind of a weird one, is take off the air cleaner cover here. That's held on with a couple of flat screws, just a regular flat screwdriver. So we'll take that off. Run those out. And then you got to work it out of here. This one's a little tight. You got to play with it. And a little more on this side too. And over here is the air filter. Now, like I said, this kit comes with an air filter, not the same. So I can't use this or install it to show you that. So with that done, we'll get the air filter out of the way. This cable would be connected to this guy over here. It's not on this mower, but if you look closely at it, right there, you can see, let me zoom in on that so you can see a little better. You see how it has like a hook at the end of it right there? Just like that? That's going to become important a little bit later. So with those screws out, first thing you want to do is undo the cable from that. You're going to want to undo it here. This is an 8mm socket. You can use a flat for it if you want. That's fine as well. So we'll take that out. And that just kind of gets out of the way over there. Now you can take out the 2 bolts for the intake, which are here and here. So we'll put the wrench on that, and we'll get these out. That's going to pull this intake off with the primer button. Yours may be a different color. I just replaced that as well on this one because it was no good, the old one. The old one was black, this one's red. Dresses it up a little bit, gives another pop of color. Not that it needs it really, but there you go. Let's see if we can just run that out real quick. So we'll get that out. Okay, now this is the intake, and that just sort of falls away. is a tube on it that just pulls off like that. So now the intake is free, and there you go. So the intake is off, and now we're down to the carburetor. Let me slip this off the other end. Again, it's just a push-on tube like that. There's nothing to hold it like that. There are a couple things to watch out for at this point. Let me get you in real close so I can show you. First thing you're going to want to do is disconnect the fuel line. This has a clamp on it. There's two little ears there, one there. Get a pair of pliers on that, squeeze it, and you can slide it back on the hose. Now the next problem you're going to have as soon as you do that is fuel is going to start flowing out of the tank pretty much as fast as it can. So you want to cap off that line. You may be able to just barely see right there some dents in it. I used a pair of vice grips. You can do that, or if you have a golf tee, you can stick that in the end of it, and that'll probably quell it right there. There's two bolts. There's one here and one hidden down here right there. I'll show you that in a minute. And the last thing that you have to be concerned about, especially after you get it unbolted, is where the throttle connects into that. And that's important because of this spring. You'll notice my spring is damaged. When I did the carburetor on here, I didn't notice, and I stretched the spring out, so I had to kind of bend it back and make it work again. Pretty much what you see over here, here's the new one, and this little guy goes like that. In that hole is where the linkage is. So after you get it unbolted, and I'll unbolt it to show you so I can show you where the gaskets go. After you get that unbolted, then it has the same sort of system that we saw before, where it's kind of bent in a hook like that. So you got to dance it around back and forth to get it off of that, all while not stretching out the spring. So now we're going to go ahead and take the bolts for the carburetor out. That's a 10 millimeter. So there's two bolts for this. 10 millimeter, like I said. These bolts are shorter than the other guys. And I'm only going to just unbolt it for you just so I could show you. I'm not going to take the fuel line off or actually replace it because, like I said, this does not actually need replacing at this point in time. And if I did take the fuel line off and a single drop of fuel spills somewhere, the EPA would be at my door real quick, and we certainly don't want that. So we'll take the bolts out, and that's pretty much as far as I'm going to go as far as this is concerned. You can see how it's loose now, and you can see how it kind of tugs on the throttle, that black thing that's right there. Let me get you in for a little closer shot here. So here's everything, and like I said, I'm not going any further as far as this assembly is concerned. Back here, you can see it move a little. There is a rubber O-ring, which I just dislodged, so I'll have to get that back on there like that, almost. There. That's one gasket, and that is included in the kit. Let me see if I can open that up right quick for you so I can show you. There it is right there. So you pull off the old one, stick that one on, and then put the carburetor back. So to do that, you just fit it back on that little nipple that's sticking out there and put the bolts back. Always start your bolts by hand and make sure that you get them started by hand before you put a tool on it, because you do not want to cross thread these bolts in any way, shape, or form, because then you're going to be looking at big problems. So once we can get these bolts started, and that seems pretty good right there, I'll see if I can run these down right quick just like this. There we are there. Okay. And now we'll give them a nice snug on there. So let's go back in here. Just tight and just a little more. You don't need much. And a little more. There we go. So now you have your new carburetor on. You want to make sure that the throttle operates properly like that. You've hooked that into the new one in that, and now wouldn't be a bad time to put your fuel line back on. So unclamp it, or put it back on, then unclamp it if you're using vice grips for that. Put the clamp back on there, and that should be fine with no leaks. The next thing you need to do is put the intake back and the hose for it. Now this is the intake. This has a gasket on it already from the old one, or the one that's on there now, just like this. Okay, so you see, so it kind of fits on there, and it sort of sticks in place, at least on this engine. So it really is no big deal. And then what you do is, making sure the gasket is in place, you go ahead and stick that on. Before I do that, I'm going to put this tube back on, which just pushed on down over here, and we'll worry about the other end afterwards. So now that we have that, it's a matter of sort of jockeying this back into position. It's a little tricky to get it just right. Somewhere there is about what you need. And then we're going to go ahead and bolt that back up. So once again, start the bolts by hand and then run them down. I strongly suggest that you use a regular old hand wrench like this instead of some sort of impact wrench or anything that's a drill looking thing. This doesn't need to be super tight. It only takes a moment, and when you do it by hand, you can torque it down and feel it, so you know you're not over tightening it. With a drill of some kind, you just don't know. So I have a little more to go, and over here it's got a little more to go. A little more, and over here tighten that, a little more, and that's good. The tube now goes back underneath. This happened to magically just fall into place. That I didn't plan, but that would just push back on over there. And we can also, while we're at it, put this guy back. You would reconnect your cable to the speed control and then run that bolt back in as well. Okay, like that. And on this engine, the air filter sits right down in there. There we are. And then this cover goes back on, and I gotta kind of push it and mush it and get it to fit in. Something like that is about right. And with that, I can now get the screw started. So we'll run that down. And this one here, we'll run that down. And tighten that up. And tighten this guy up here. That's it right there. And now I can show you about changing the spark plug. So here's the spark plug. It is HIPA branded. That pulls off. You want to gap your spark plug properly. You want to check the specifications of your engine. I happen to know this one is an 030, and that fits just about right in with just the perfect amount of drag right there. So that is gapped properly. Now let's replace it. You need a spark plug socket in order to replace it. So you want to pull off the lead to the spark plug like that. I don't have a spark plug socket. I got one of these guys. So it's cruddy, but it works. And we can do that and loosen it. And it never fits on straight, so it goes all crooked like that. But there we go. There's the old plug. It's not looking too hot, so let's put the new one in. So for that, start the plug by hand, because you have the room and the option to do so. And screw that right in, just like that. I'm going to get my tool here, put that on, Not too tight. Just about that. And that's it. It has to be tight enough so we don't lose any compression from not making a good seal, but not too tight, then you're going to have a real problem next time. And of course, you got to plug that back in like that, because otherwise it won't start. So let's see how it runs with the new plug. All right, let's see if it'll start. I've already primed it. There we go. Off right off. So once again, this was the HIPA carburetor kit for Briggs Stratton 5.5 to 6.75 horsepower engines. HIPA sells a whole bunch of different carburetor kits, air filters separately, all kinds of small engine stuff like that. If you'd like to purchase this kit or any of the other products that they sell, I'll leave a link in the video description to their website. Thanks for watching. Make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe, and take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.